Hello, vinyl community. So I'm thinking about doing some label features here. I tend to shop by label because one thing I've kind of found is with collecting for about 30 years. Not a lot of things I can say I've been doing for 30 years, but collecting records is one of them. One thing I found though is that labels tend to be a pretty reliable guide as to what sort of stuff you're going to get. And yeah, if you're talking, Warner or Elektra or Atlantic and big companies like that, sure, they kind of had their own characters in the early days, but they tended to kind of jettison that with time anyway. But if you're talking small metal labels, you can usually get a reasonable sense, even if you're, or not just metal labels either, whether the reissue labels, newer ones, jazz labels, and things like that. There's a Blue Note sound, there's an ESP sound, and then, of course, there's a Metal Blade sound. And that kind of brings us to what we're looking to talk about today, which is the early Metal Blade releases. Now, I went to kind of made a point of going and seeking all these bad boys out because of the early slice of metal history that it represents. And I lived in LA for a couple of years, and one thing that I really came to appreciate while I was there was how Metal Blade, even though for me as a kid growing up in Cleveland, it seemed like, oh, Metal Blade, it might as well have been, CBS or something like that for its stature. When Metal Blade started out, it was really a local label dealing with mostly local bands and a couple of licenses here and there, especially when you get past the 15th release or so. But originally it was really set up to document the local scene as much as anything else was, and so that's part of why you see so many compilations and so many kind of half-baked releases and that, a lot of which really have their charm anyway. So starting right off, and I frankly expect that if you're watching this you probably know all these records, but what the fuck, I'm going to talk about them anyway. Starting with this one right here, the original Metal Massacre record. And you probably know what's on this. Yes, it's the first vinyl appearance of Metallica, and their name is spelled wrong with 2 T's. Not that you can see that on my shitty camera, but there's Ron McGovney's name is spelled wrong too, which is kind of funny. But this is really a great record from start to finish. It has this super primitive, like, kind of hard rocky stuff from Bitch. It has kind of a mediocre but cool for its earliness sounding tune by Steeler, a couple songs by Malice, some early Rat, and Searthungle, and really the only clunker is an instrumental by this band called Avatar, who, as far as I know, never went anywhere. I don't believe they're the same Avatar as was Sabotage related somehow, whatever that connection was. Another thing I learned sort of straight from the horse's mouth was, I'm sure you probably know Malice from a couple records they put out in Atlantic a little bit later in the 80s. You may have seen that the test pressings of Ample Destruction by Jag Panzer were labeled with License to Kill. Apparently at the last minute they decided they weren't going to call the record License to Kill because Malice had just put out a record called that. I didn't want to look like they were aping this other band, so... Anyway, so that's the first Metal Massacre. Went through 3 pressings that I know of. The second one is probably the hardest to find, actually, the one on Ironworks, which was some kind of license, and the third one turns up. You can see tapes of that on eBay. So the first non-comp, MBR 1002, or was it one? Yeah, is first Bitch EP, Damnation Alley. This copy is signed by all 4 band members. And if you're ever looking at this in a shop and someone tries to charge you an arm and a leg for it because it's signed by all band members, they all were. So don't fall for it. In fact, it might be worth some bucks if you manage to find one that's not signed, because I've probably had 20 copies of this in my hands over the years, and I've never seen one that wasn't signed by all 4 members. So, anyway, so yeah, this is really cool stuff. I mean, Bitch was sort of an acquired taste for me. I'm not the biggest fan of female singers. I know how that sounds, but it's just the way it is, especially with metal. It's just, they sound so primitive and almost more like hard rock, but it's really kind of worth giving them the time to start listening to it and appreciating it, because the riffs are solid, the playing is, they're convinced of what they're doing, and, it just has this energy that, you'd expect off a record in like 1982 when it was pretty much against the grain to be doing that sort of thing. I mean, it's really contemporary with the tail end of the new wave of British heavy metal, for all the hype that gets or has gotten. Next one is the Demon Flight EP, MBR 1003. It has 3 songs, a new version of Dead of the Night, I guess, as opposed to the one on Metal Massacre, but what the hell do I know? It's another funny record. It's like they weren't quite sure if they wanted to be sort of a mid-pace by today's standards, but by the time, like a speedy metal band or a total prog band, because Dead of the Night is this weird, like, prog sound with these really kind of weird vocals, and then Search and Destroy is a lot more straightforward, like, you know, and then side 2 you have Flight of the Demon. I love this thing, but same deal, it's sort of an acquired taste. But again, worth investing, man. So, if you're into it. After that, they went right on to another comp, Metal Massacre 2. Yeah, and this one's fucking fantastic, too. You have Armored Saint on here with maybe the somewhat overexposed Lesson Well Learned. You have an early Warlord song. This is, to my knowledge, the only vinyl appearance of Trauma when Cliff Burton was still in the band. But there you go. And, you know, it's definitely more primitive sound than on Scratch and Scream, although I like that record a lot, too. You got Dietrich, you got Hyksos, who only ever put out a private press record for some reason, which is barely even metal. I mean, it's kind of a stretch. You got Aloha, who became Hawaii and featured Marty Friedman. Savage Grace, Overkill from LA, the band that put out that record on SST called Triumph of the Will, which doesn't even really sound like a metal record either, but this song fits right into the mix. So, again, you know, it's a weird collection of stuff, Obsession, Third Stage Alert, and just kind of indicative of how metal was still in its infancy, you know, for all the talk about how this was the second wave. As far as finding a stylized sound and, you know, what metal sounded like by 85 or 86, where it meant something really specific, that just didn't fucking exist yet. And I love how it sounds when that shit didn't exist. I love the other shit too, but fuck it. So anyway, the next one's the Warlord EP. So Greeno got a much nicer copy of this a couple years ago, so it's a 2-year-old video, but I just saw it, and what can I say? But this one is nice. It's Deliver Us. This is almost like prog. I mean, this is really, you know, it sounds super evil. Deliver Us from Evil, Black Mass, Lucifer's Hammer. And they have these weird names, but it's just another unusual sounding record. Kind of has its own vibe going. There's nothing else that quite sounds quite like it, except maybe Demon Flight, if anything's close, but that's about the extent of it. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that's the last one where it was actually, you know, Metal Blade is completely independent. After that, they started carrying the Enigma logo on the back. Actually, this one says marketed by Enigma. It doesn't actually have the logo yet, but this one does have an Enigma insert with some interesting stuff all over the place. This is the 6th release on the label, the first Savage Grace EP called The Dominatrix. And it's funny because, you know, again, as far as the whole idea of metal not being stylized the way it would become later on, I mean, this record in 1988 or 89, fucking glam, right? This thing rocks. It's fucking heavy. It's not as balls out rockin' as they'd become on their first full length, but this is a rocker of a record, man. I enjoy it from start to finish. So look how funny that guy in the middle looks. I don't know if you can see that on my camera. That guy's hair got fucked up. I hope he got his money back. So the next one, the 7th one, if I'm counting this right, is the first full length by Bitch. It's actually, notably, Bitch had the first EP under their own name, and then also the first full-length LP on the label, which wasn't a comp, obviously. So this is the full-length, comes with an insert, and for my money, Damnation Alley, even though it sounds more primitive, is kind of cooler than this one. I enjoy it more. That might just be partially because the length of it is more to my taste. I'm kind of ready for something else after that. But this is a solid piece to have in your collection, and I mean, shit, man, you can't argue with that, dude. You fucking look at this in the store and you've already got your money's worth, so what can I say? The next one is another Metal Massacre record. It is Metal Massacre 3, which, again, this is probably... Actually, I like this at least as much as the other two. You can start to hear metal coming into its own a little bit more on this one. I mean, Slayer's on it, okay? And it's funny because they sound... I don't want to say softer, but they don't sound as fully mature as they already did by their first LP. Not that I'd call that mature compared to, like, South of Heaven or even Rain in Blood or something like that. But it sounded like they knew what they were doing and they were going exactly for it. But you've probably heard that anyway. Has another bitch song on it. And a bunch of bands actually that didn't really go that much further here, like Medusa. That's actually a great song. There's a Medusa track out here called Piranhas. I don't know anything about them. I do know that my camera's a fucking piece of shit. God damn it. Alright, there we go. One take, man. One fucking take. We got another Warlord song on here. You actually have some early Virgin Steel. Marauder and Lamort close it out. Also great stuff. And then you have actually one of the ultimate band names for band names that aged fucking poorly. Now, White Spirit was up there because I remember when I first discovered that band, I was like, yeah, man, I've been listening to the White Spirit singles. And I was like, oh, White Spirit? It kind of sounds kind of maybe like the sort of band. Never mind. You don't want to talk about it at work, right? Well, this one features a band called Sexist. I wouldn't have to explain to my wife why my fucking band was called Sexist. Alright, so we're going to close out with the 9th one because I left number 10 in the other room. So I'm probably going to do a part 2 of this and go through number 20. Next one, though, is the Armored Saint EP. First one. It's a little bit of a rough copy, but it's okay. And again, it has Lesson Well Learned on it. But you can listen to this record and hear why it's important and, whatever else. And, I mean, it's a really cool looking piece, that's for damn sure. But, I don't know. I don't think it's worth what some of the Europeans pay for it. I'm glad I have it, though. I'm sure I'll keep it forever. So that's kind of a bummer note to end on, though. Me talking shit about Armored Saint, which is probably someone's favorite band, or at least, I don't know, third or fourth favorite band, maybe. I'm going to throw in a little bonus record here at the end. It's completely off topic, except that it's metal related. I kind of whined a little bit in a previous video about not having a copy of Angel of Retribution. But one thing I did pick up when I saw it, and I'm glad I did, was this edition of Unleashed in the East by Judas Priest, which you'll notice isn't even called Unleashed in the East. It's just called Priest in the East. And it has the Obi on there, it has an insert. And it actually comes with a bonus 45. Which, in addition to the original songs that everyone knows, I'm not going to recite what's on fucking Unleashed in the East. But it has this additional 7-inch in there, which has the bonus tracks that have appeared on a bunch of different versions that have come out since then. I think they're actually on the new Back in Black reissue that came out not long ago. We have Rock Forever, Delivering the Goods, Starbreaker, and Hellbent for Leather. Had a little brain fart there. And kind of the weirdest thing about it, in a way, is that this record, right, I have it separately so it doesn't get damaged. But in the packaging, it's actually inside of this piece of cardboard. Can you see that? So presumably if you were like a kid in 78 or 79 in Japan, this thing would have been taped in right there like that. And you'd be like, oh, it's my bonus with the fucking Judas Priest record. I'm so stoked, and the lyrics are in here. Fucked up transliterated, of course, and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so this fucking thing pretty much rules from start to finish, and I'm proud to own one. So I'm going to hang it up for now. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll make it up on that Obsession record, I guess. It's in the other fucking room, but if I get it, the video, I'll fuck with the camera, but I'm not going to walk in the other room and, smoke a joint or something before I come back. I don't know. Maybe do lines since it's metal. Fuck, I don't know, man. Anyway, I don't do any of that stuff anymore, of course. Thanks a lot, and I appreciate all the support I've gotten from people thus far, especially Grano. Shout out again.